How to run macOS on Windows 10 in a virtual machine. Windows 10 is a great operating system. It has its quirks and annoyances. But which operating system doesn't? Even if you're beholden to Microsoft and Windows 10, you can still shop around. What better way to do that than from the safe confines of your existing operating system with a virtual machine? This way, you can run macOS on Windows, which is perfect when you want to use Mac-only apps on Windows. So, here's how you install macOS in a virtual machine on Windows, making a virtual Hackintosh that lets you run Apple apps from your Windows machine. Before delving into the how-to, you need to download and install the essential tools. The tutorial details how to create macOS virtual machines using both Oracle VirtualBox Manager, VirtualBox, and VMware Workstation Player, VMware Player. Are you struggling to decide which virtual machine software to use? VirtualBox and VMware Workstation Player are both free, but which one is best for you? Let us help you find out. You need a copy of macOS 2. Catalina is the latest macOS version. You can find the download links for macOS Catalina in the next section. This tutorial will focus on installing macOS Catalina in a virtual machine running on Intel hardware, using either VirtualBox or VMware Player. There is, however, the code snippet that anyone using an AMD system requires to boot a macOS Catalina using VMware on AMD hardware. The process to launch the macOS Catalina virtual machine is the same as the Intel version but uses a slightly different code snippet. You can find the tutorial and the code snippet in the section below. Furthermore, you will find links to several AMD macOS Catalina, Mojave, and High Sierra virtual machine tutorials at the end of the article. If the Google Drive reaches its download limit while downloading the macOS Catalina virtual machine image file, right-click the file and select Copy to create a copy in your own Google Drive. You can then download the macOS Catalina virtual image from there. After the virtual image finishes downloading, right-click and extract the file using your favorite archive tool. For instance, right-click, then select 7-zip greater than extract to macOS Catalina. Please note that these links may stop working from time to time. If that is the case, please leave a comment, and I'll fix them as soon as possible. Before creating the macOS virtual machine, you need to install the VirtualBox extension pack. It includes fixes for USB 3.0 support, mouse and keyboard support, and other useful VirtualBox patches. Regarding the virtual machine name, make it something memorable yet easy to type. You'll need to input this name in a series of commands, and it is frustrating to type a complicated name multiple times. Next, set the amount of RAM the macOS virtual machine can use. I would suggest a minimum of 4 GB, but the more you can give from the host system, the better your experience will be. Remember, you cannot assign more RAM than your system has available, and you need to leave some memory available for the host operating system. Learn more about how much RAM does a system need. Now, you need to assign a hard disk, which is the virtual image downloaded previously. Select Use an existing virtual hard disk file. Then select the folder icon. Browse to the VMDK file. Then select Create. Don't try and start your macOS Catalina virtual machine yet. Before firing the virtual machine up, you need to make a few tweaks to the settings. Right-click your macOS virtual machine and select Settings. Select the Processor tab. Assign 2 processors. If you have a CPU with power to spare, such as an Intel Core i7 or i9 with multiple extra cores, consider assigning more. However, this isn't vital. It still isn't quite time to fire up your macOS Catalina virtual machine. In its current configuration, VirtualBox doesn't work with your macOS VMDK. To get it up and running, you have to essentially patch VirtualBox before the macOS virtual machine will function. To do this, you need to enter some code using the command prompt. All the details are below. Start by closing VirtualBox. The commands will not execute properly if VirtualBox or any of its associated processes are running. If your menu only shows the PowerShell option, type command into your Start menu search bar. Then right-click the best match. and select Run as Administrator. CD, C Program Files, Oracle, VirtualBox, now. Enter the following commands. One by one. Adjust the command to match the name of your virtual machine. For instance, my virtual machine name is macoscat. Here are the commands. VBox manage setextra macoscat, VBox internal, devices, SMC, 0, config, devachecki, our hard work by this words guarded please don't steal, C, Apple Computer Inc. VBox manage setextra macoscat, VBox internal, devices, SMC, 0, config, getkey from rel SMC, 1 after the completion of the commands. And presuming you encountered no errors, close the command prompt. Reopen VirtualBox. Double-click your macOS virtual machine to start it. You will see a long stream of text, followed by a gray screen. The gray screen can take a moment or two to clear, but don't panic. Once the screen clears, macOS Catalina will begin installing. When it resolves, you will arrive at the macOS Welcome screen. Pro tip: take a snapshot of your virtual machine once it passes the gray screen. If anything goes wrong down the line, you can return to the welcome screen setup and start the process again. Once you complete the macOS setup, take another one so you can jump straight into your macOS installation. Head to machine greater than take snapshot. Give your snapshot a name, and wait for it to process. Prefer VMware over VirtualBox. You can create a macOS Catalina virtual machine using VMware that works exactly the same as VirtualBox. And, just as with VirtualBox, VMware also requires patching before the macOS Catalina virtual machine will work. This part of the tutorial works for Intel and AMD systems. AMD users must use the second code snippet when editing the virtual machine VMX file. Read through the tutorial to see what this means exactly. In the macOS Catalina Virtual Image section is the VMware Player Patch tool. Before commencing any further, download the patch tool. Then, browse to the location you downloaded the patch tool to. Extract the contents of the archive. This process works best when the folders are on the same drive, e.g. the VMware root folder and extracted archive are both found on the C drive. Make sure VMware is completely closed. Now, in the Patcher folder, right-click the Win Install command script and select Run as Administrator. The script will open a command prompt window, and the patch script will run. Do pay attention. The script whizzes by, and you need to keep watch for any file not found messages. The most common reason for a file not found, or a system cannot find the file specified, message is installing VMware Workstation Player in a different location to the default folder, and executing the patch from a different directory. Now, select Apple Mac OS X, and change the version to macOS 10.14. If you don't see the macOS options, it is because the patch didn't install correctly. Next, you need to choose a name for your macOS Catalina virtual machine. Choose something easy to remember. Then copy the file path to somewhere handy. You're going to need it to make some edits in a moment. On the next screen, stick with the suggested maximum hard disk size. Then select Store Virtual Disk as a single file. Complete the virtual disk creation wizard. But do not start the virtual machine just yet. Before you can boot the virtual machine, you must edit the hardware specifications. Plus, you need to tell VMware where to find the macOS VMDK. From the main VMware screen, select your macOS Catalina virtual machine. Then right-click, and select Settings. Like VirtualBox, bump the virtual machine memory up to at least 4 GB. You can allocate more if you have RAM to spare. Now, under Hard Disk SATA, you need to remove the hard disk created earlier. Select Remove and VMware will remove the disk automatically. Now, select Add greater than hard disk greater than SATA, recommended, greater than use an existing disk. Browse to the location of the macOS VMDK and select it. This section is for Intel users and it involves the final set of edits you need to make before switching your VMware macOS Catalina virtual machine on. C users, your name, documents, virtual machines, your Mac OS X folder. Browse to macOS.vmx. Right-click, and select Open with. Select Notepad, or your preferred text editor. Scroll to the bottom of the configuration file and add the following line. This section is for AMD users. Like the above section, AMD users must also edit the VMX file before proceeding. The AMD edit involves a few more lines than the Intel version, but you can copy and paste the data into the file. See Users, Your Name, Documents, Virtual Machines, your Mac OS X folder. Browse to macOS.vmx. Right-click, and select Open with. Select Notepad, or your preferred text editor. Scroll to the bottom of the configuration file and add the following lines. You now need to install VMware Tools, which is a set of utilities and extensions that improve mouse handling, video performance, and other useful things. The installation Digaushki will appear on the macOS desktop. When the option appears, select Install VMware Tools, then allow it access to the removable volume. Follow the guided installer, which will require a restart on completion. There are a couple of things that can go wrong during the macOS virtual machine installation in VMware Player Workstation. If you cannot see Apple Mac OS X during the virtual machine creation wizard, then you need to revisit the patch process. Ensure every process associated with VMware Player is off. If you receive the message, Mac OS X is not supported with binary translation, when starting the virtual machine, there is a strong chance you need to activate virtualization in your BIOS, UEFI configuration. If you receive the message, VMware Player Unrecoverable Error, VCPU0, when starting the virtual machine, you need to head back to the macOS.vmx configuration file to ensure you added the extra line and saved the edit. If you're running AMD hardware and get stuck at the Apple logo, first power off the virtual machine. Now, head to Settings greater than Options greater than General. Change the guest operating system to Microsoft Windows, and the version to Windows 10 x64. Press OK. Then attempt to power up the virtual machine again. Once the Apple logo passes, power down the virtual machine. Then set the guest operating system option back to Apple Mac OS X. Selecting the correct version. Apple uses Intel hardware to power desktops and laptops. Configuring a macOS virtual machine using Intel hardware is easier because the hardware specifications are very similar. With AMD, the opposite is true, because Apple does not develop macOS on AMD hardware. Creating a macOS virtual machine on an AMD system is trickier. Adding to this, I don't have an AMD system to test macOS virtual machines on, so I cannot give you a detailed tutorial. I can, however, point you in the direction of several macOS AMD virtual machine tutorials that do work, so long as you are patient and follow each step accordingly. The AMD OS X forum is a great resource for macOS virtual machines. You can find many more forum threads regarding AMD macOS virtual machines. 2. You have two options to choose from for your macOS Catalina virtual machine. Both options are great if you want to give macOS a try before making the switch from Windows and enjoy some of the best Apple apps on offer. You can use a virtual machine to test other operating systems too. For instance, here's how to install a Linux distro in a virtual machine. Check out our VirtualBox User's Guide, which teaches everything you need to know, or our guide to creating a virtual machine using Windows 10 Hyper-V. Did you know Windows 10 has an integrated tool for creating virtual machines? It's called Hyper-V, and here's how it works. Text source, makeuseof.com.